Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a debut contemporary romance novel here that absolutely crushed it, instant New York Times bestseller. But at the same time, it drove its core audience, its fans, absolutely wild with frustration and just so much debate.
It's a really fascinating tension, isn't it? The book is Abby Jimenez's 2019 novel, The Friend Zone. And our sources today are, well, they're all over the map. We have high praise from places like Kirkus calling it emotionally intense. And then you have these incredibly passionate, detailed reader critiques.
Critiques that basically argue the book betrayed the genre's promise.
Exactly.
So our mission is to use these contrasting views to figure out how this novel managed to both follow the rules of romance and at the same time just spectacularly subvert them. We're going to focus on the massive obstacles the characters face and, of course, that polarizing ending. I mean, when you see a book get that much love and that much backlash, what's your first thought?
It tells me the author hit on something really, really real. But then, right, the landing. The landing felt, to many, totally unearned. This is more than just, I didn't like the ending. The frustration signals a real feeling of betrayal. Readers felt the author was just jerking them around with all this angst.
Right, maximal angst. So before we get into all that, we should probably set the stage. Jimenez isn't just writing one-off books. She's building a whole world.
A whole universe. You really need that context. The Friend Zone is book one of a trilogy. It's followed by the Happy Ever playlist and then Life's Too Short.
And it's her whole method of interwoven world building that's so interesting. Characters from one book will pop up in another.
Precisely. It's not just a cameo. A side character in one book might be the hero of the next.
So Josh Copeland, the main guy in this book,
Yeah.
He's not just some random character.
Not at all. He's the cousin of Adrienne Copeland, who's a major figure later in the series. It creates this incredible continuity. You feel like you're entering a real community.
And she grounds that community in real places, too. The settings are super specific, California and the Midwest, which I think adds to that realism.
It does. She writes about Minnesota and South Dakota, places she knows. And then there's that little Easter egg she always includes.
The bakery.
The bakery, Nadia Cakes. It's a real business that she actually owns with locations in L.A. and Minneapolis. It's this little touch of reality that just, it makes the whole world feel so tangible.
Okay, so she's built this very real, cohesive world. But for the story to work, it has to play by the rules of the romance genre. And there are a couple of, non-negotiable rules, right?
Oh, absolutely. The romance writers of America are very clear. You need a central love story, obviously. And most important, you need an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending.
The HEA. The happily ever after.
Or at least a happy for now, an HFN. If you don't give the couple their happy ending, it's not a romance anymore, it's just drama. That's the contract with the reader.
And The Friend Zone starts out following that playbook perfectly. It hits all the classic tropes, starting with the meet cute.
A very literal meet cute. He literally crashes into her.
A literal bang. Josh rear ends Kristen's truck. And the sparks just fly from moment one.
And right away, they're thrown into forced proximity. They find out they're the best man and maid of honor for their best friend's wedding.
So now they have to spend months together planning everything.
And it gets even more intense. Josh is a firefighter. He's good with his hands, so he offers to help build things for her small business in her garage.
And then he ends up moving into her guest room for a while. It's just textbook slow burn. They're constantly around each other.
But there's a big obstacle from the start.
Her boyfriend, Tyler, he's a Marine, deployed overseas. And that's why she puts Josh firmly in the friend zone.
It's the perfect initial roadblock. It shows she has integrity, she won't cheat, but it keeps that tension simmering. You know he's not the end game.
Right. The story needs to get him out of the picture. And it does, pretty quickly.
Very quickly. He breaks up with her over voicemail, basically. He tells her he's re-enlisting, which was a deal breaker for her.
And the second he's gone?
The second that obstacle is removed, Kristen and Josh give in. They sleep together.
But that's when the real conflict starts. It's not external anymore. It's all internal. Kristen just slams the brakes.
She does. She insists it can only be friends with benefits, no real relationship. And this is all because of a huge secret she's keeping from him.
And this is where the story gets really tricky. The secret is that she has uterine fibroids.
And she knows she's going to need a hysterectomy, which means she can't have children. Ever.
Which is put in direct opposition to Josh's #1 goal in life.
It's not just a goal, it's an obsession. He doesn't just want kids. He tells her he wants a minimum of 5, but he'd really prefer 9.
9 biological children. It's such an extreme number that it makes her secret feel completely insurmountable.
It is. And her refusal to just tell him the truth is what drove so many readers crazy. It wasn't seen as self-sacrificing. It just felt like immature miscommunication.
Right. The sources said it leads to hundreds of pages of the same back and forth. You just want to shake her and say, just talk to him.
Because the obstacle could be resolved with one honest conversation. When you stretch that out for so long, the tension just feels manufactured. It's like these are adults, a firefighter, and a business owner acting like teenagers.
The author does try to give her some backstory for it, though. We meet her mother, Evelyn.
We do. And her mom is, well, she's cold, she's ambitious, critical. It definitely helps you understand why Kristen is so terrified of disappointing people, especially Josh.
So you get why she's so defensive and closed off.
You do, but the critics felt that backstory was kind of glossed over. You get a few scenes with her mom, and then hundreds of pages of Kristen just agonizing instead of talking. The setup didn't really justify the endless emotional churn.
So they finally get to the breakthrough, the big reveal.
Yes, after all that tension, she finally tells him. And Josh, to his credit, reacts perfectly. He basically says, I choose you.
He decides he wants her more than he wants biological children. It's the big romantic moment.
It really is. He's all in. He starts researching IVF, surrogacy. He even asks his sisters if they'd consider carrying a child for them. He's fully committed to their future.
This should have been it. The path to the happily ever after is finally clear, but nope. The book takes this incredibly sharp, traumatic turn.
And this is the point that really divided people. Right after they have this huge resolution, Josh gets a call. There's been an accident.
And it's his best friend, Brandon, Sloane's fiancé.
He was hit by a drunk driver, and he doesn't make it. He's taken off life support, and he dies.
The critiques were brutal about this. They called it melodrama and maximal angst manipulation. What does that actually mean?
It means using a huge external trauma like a main character's death that has nothing to do with the core romantic conflict. It feels like a shortcut, you know. The author uses this tragedy to force the main characters to realize what's really important. It feels exploitative.
And a lot of readers said it made Josh and Kristen seem incredibly selfish. Their best friend is grieving the love of her life, and they're still wrapped up in their own relationship drama.
It's a focus problem. The story sidelines Sloane's grief to keep the spotlight on the main couple's angst, and it just felt wrong. It felt inappropriate.
So the resolution that follows feels really rushed, and it's Sloane, in her grief, who has to push them together.
Yeah. Sloane basically yells at Kristen to stop being stupid about Josh. That's the push. Kristen runs home, finds Josh's binder full of his plans for their life, and they decide to get married. Like that day.
Some critics even said he hustles her into marrying him so she can't back out.
Which just adds to that feeling of it being forced. And then the epilogue. The single biggest point of contention for everyone.
The miracle baby.
The miracle baby. 2 years later, Kristen goes to the doctor for low blood sugar. And surprise, she's pregnant. They have a son, Oliver, and then she has her hysterectomy.
It just completely undoes everything they went through. All that emotional work, all that sacrifice, just erased.
Exactly. The backlash was so intense because it cheapened the entire infertility struggle. Readers invested in Josh choosing Kristen over having biological children, and then the author just gives them a biological child anyway. The sacrifice meant nothing.
And what was the deeper critique, beyond it just feeling like a cheat?
That it reduced Kristen back down to her fertility. The story, unintentionally or not, implies that she wasn't truly whole or worthy of her happy ending until she could get pregnant. It completely undermined the supposed theme.
A theme the author actually spelled out in her author's note.
She did. She wrote that the story was about learning to accept love, not about achieving pregnancy. And readers were like, well, if you have to tell us that in a note, the story itself failed.
So the friend zone follows the big rule. It delivers the HEA, but it burns a lot of goodwill along the way. The twist just felt manipulative and ended up undermining the very real, serious topics like infertility that it was trying to explore.
I think the reader commentary is so telling here. It shows you what the modern romance reader wants. They want the happy ending, sure, but they want it to feel earned. They want the story to respect the real-world issues it brings up, not just use them as plot devices.
It really leaves you with a big question to think about, doesn't it? When a genre demands an optimistic ending, does that pressure sometimes force an author into these implausible solutions like a miracle pregnancy? And if it does, what's better in the end? An ending that feels realistic, even if it's a little sad, or one that's happy but feels totally impossible? It's a really tricky line to walk between romance, realism, and what you, the reader, expect.